listening to In-Fisherman Storyline, North America's top voice in multi-species freshwater angling. Here is your host, Thomas Allen.
Hey, welcome to In-Fisherman Storyline. We got a fun discussion today. In fact, one that I've been having at gas stations a lot lately, and I wanted to really dig into power. And we brought in a couple experts today. And before we get to that, just want to thank you for being a part of this. This is a new endeavor here at In-Fisherman, and this is going to be, I'm kind of waffling on the name here. I've been calling this bucket the Front Porch edition of In-Fisherman Storyline, but I kind of woke up in the middle of the night last night in a cold sweat and decided I think I like On the Water a little bit better, but I don't know yet because this discussion is not going to take place on the water. We're talking about rigging. We're talking about battery power. I really don't know, but as we work through the early days of this podcast, we're going to continue to change things up. So stay patient with me. We got a couple cool guests here. I'm in the studio with a longtime friend of mine. He used to fish the Elite Series, decided guiding was a better gig for him, and I can't disagree. I know he catches big fish everywhere he goes, but good friend Josh Douglas lives over by Mille Lacs. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, awesome to be here. Just a Minnesota native to be here, and In-Fisherman headquarters, man, this is a treat.
Well, it's not too often we get a hotshot celebrity in studio.
I don't know about that. I don't know, but yeah, no, it's awesome. You know, pulling in, seeing the In-Fisherman sign, and a
lot of history.
Yeah, a ton for me. You know, this is, like I said, if the kid in me saw where I was now, I already won the battle. So, yeah, it's just awesome to be here. Thanks for having me. I'm
happy you're here, and I echo those sentiments. But the real hotshot is on the phone. He's joining us remotely. Is Shawn Budiac. He's the VP of Category Management, or am I even saying that right, yeah. Shawn? I'm sure I got that all wrong. But X2Power. This is cool. Listen, there are a lot of great battery options out there, and I think it's often difficult to find the right person to ask questions to. I have questions. There's still things I'm learning, but Shawn is elbow deep in lithium battery power all the time right now, and making sure boats are rigged. Josh's boat is rigged with X2Power. Our In-Fisherman boats here are powered by X2Power, and my personal boat is rigged with X2Power. So it's reliable. I can assure you it's reliable. They look good too. I think the colors are great. The branding's strong. You guys did good on that side.
I never thought about the color, but yeah.
Took a lot of time to get the whole color thing going.
Yeah. Well, thanks for being here, Shawn. We're going to dig right in. Let's talk a little bit about where you guys are at. So, X2Power is a part of the Batteries Plus brand. That's something that I think most of us are familiar with. So, it's handy for guys that are on the road that are traveling to fish tournaments, or there's a Batteries Plus close to you in most places across the country. But tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into the wide world of lithium and boat power.
Sure. So myself, you know, in terms of working through in this product line and kind of in this industry, July will mark 18 years with Batteries Plus. As you said, this is a product line that has been born and raised with Batteries Plus, but we've done a lot of effort to celebrate it outside the actual doors, you know, of our stores, and really connect with the anglers, connect with the outdoorsmen who are looking for, you know, not only a retailer that they trust, but a product brand that they trust day in and day out. So my life here has been, you know, two-way radios and cordless drills of the past, you know, all the way up to, you know, running programs for our marine batteries overall. And then being able to be a part of this X2Power journey, which we've really started. The batteries have been around, and for anyone who's, you know, got a boat, many had the Blue Top products in our AGM products to start their boat. They've been around for 7-8 years. But really the lithium technology, I'll admit we were slow to jump into it. We wanted to make sure all the kinks were worn out, but became a lithium expert, you know, darn overnight, you know, as it came to not only the product technology that we're working on, but being able to work hand in hand with folks like Josh, or I had an angler this weekend, or actually today really, that we were working with on a power hookup issue they were having. Learning battery technology and learning in the field and wiring and learning the charging systems, it flipped the switch and has been one of the coolest projects I've gotten a chance to work on at Batteries Plus in those years.
Well, I'll tell you, it has come on quickly. And I like the idea of there being a retail outlet here, because so many of these batteries are, available online and they can ship them to you. But if you've ever tried to ship a lithium battery from your house, that doesn't work. There's all kinds of hoops to jump through. So having a retail outlet is nice, because like anything, I ruined a battery because I left it plugged in and didn't charge it for about 3 months, and had to return it to the vendor. So having somebody nearby that can maybe help you troubleshoot, maybe give you some suggestions, and most of all, if you need to buy more batteries, I think that's a super handy component to have an X2 out of Batteries Plus. So what has been amazing to me is, Josh, correct me if I'm wrong, you spend a little more time in the boat than I do for sure, but would you say the last 5 years has been probably the fastest or the explosive part of boat electronics compared to the last 20? I mean, has there been a more robust time of development than that?
Yeah, I mean, I basically have been in it for 20 years since I, started out with my first boat and stuff. And I mean, electronics have, when you look at that, like the first 10 years was kind of slow, it was moving fast enough, but now the last 5 in particular, from the electronics and the battery standpoint, has been really over the top. Like, it's really unprecedented how fast the stuff's coming up, and how much you gotta. I can see how frustrating that can be sometimes for some people trying to learn it, myself included. But at the same time, there's a ton of great information because of it, and there is just an overflow of it right now with new electronics, and then with the electronics comes power, and you gotta. Nobody wants to invest that kind of money in electronics to not have the power that those electronics need to get the most out of them.
Well, if you're writing a budget to rig your boat, that needs to be a big component of it. These things are expensive enough as it is. I mean, trolling motors too, didn't even mention that. Those things have exploded as well. So you really need to have adequate power across the board. And I think that it really comes down to how much time you anticipate spending on the water each day. And if you can determine that on the high end, I think you can pretty easily come to a consensus or an understanding of how many amp hours you need, whether that's for your graphs at the dash and the front, if it's your trolling motor, any other accessories you have going on. It's a pretty simple calculation. I want to talk about that here briefly. It's something we all refer to as amp hours. And Shawn, if I get out of line and start talking about stuff I clearly don't know, like, cut me off quickly.
All right.
I have made some mistakes in this journey, so I have learned the hard way. But when I calculate amp hours for my electronics, I simply refer to the Googles. You can check your user manual, whatever graph you're using, they all will tell you how many amps you draw per hour. And I think as an average, these larger 8 to 10 to, well, I would say 10 to 12 inch graphs pull a little over 3 amps an hour.
That's starting to get small. On the graph, 10 inches used to be the big dog. Now they're starting to get small.
That's right.
That's kind of on the small end.
I had a little 5-inch unit on that old Lund I had all those years ago, and I thought I was kicking with that thing.
Oh yeah.
So the larger graphs now, they're high resolution. They're sending power out to perhaps a live sonar or 360 or whatever, and that's a whole nother source of power. But so we'll just call it 3.5 amps per hour on some of those bigger units. If you have 5, I don't do math very well, but 3 times 5 is what, 15 plus another 2.5 is 17 amp hours or amps you need per hour. If you're going to fish for 12 hours, this is where I need my calculator here. So 17 times. Let's see. Yeah, 17 times 12. Let's just see. 204 amp hours you need.
I believe.
Yeah.
So tell me. I know. Yeah. I didn't know that numbers, but I know it's a ton. It's like a ton. It needs a lot of power.
Well, and guess what? We're going to talk about selecting the right battery as we go through all this, but you also got to have room in the back of your boat. So you have to be selective with not only how you rig your electronics, but you also need to make sure that you have room for adequate battery support. And I'll tell you what, it's been hard to keep up with as these batteries have advanced. They have changed size and footprint and weight so much that, I mean, you got to stay on your game. But one of those solutions has been a smaller 36 volt lithium battery.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
That's changed a game for a lot of people, because if you put 2 of those in, as opposed to 3 12-volt batteries, you have room for now 3 more.
Oh yeah, and the boat manufacturers too are, you got to bear with them. They got to make the fronts. We're essentially putting more weight on the front of the boat and pulling less weight out of, or pulling more weight out of the, or less weight out of the back. Wait, you know what I'm saying? The front of the boat's heavier, the back of the boat's getting lighter. We need more batteries. We need more space for grass, and they have to build boats around our present day needs for sure.
So Shawn, as you've navigated these waters, pun intended, talk a little bit about how your angler input, the pros that you've worked with over the years here, have helped get you to where you guys are at now.
It's been in reality, we've been really working with all of our anglers for 4 years. And as you say, the last, call it, what do you say, 5 or 10 years, it's advanced incredibly. It's advanced incredibly in the last 4 years. Never until this year was I having a angler with a boat having 225 amp hour batteries in parallel to run their electronics. It's just the first time I got the call from one of the guys that's on the elites. So there's no way you need 2 batteries. And then he did say he's got 16 inch, 15 inch live off the front, live off the back, and you had to do all that math that you just did, and you go, holy cow. So what was 4 years ago, there were several of our anglers that would hook up a couple of the units to our Blue Top starting battery, or put 2 of those in parallel. And conversation after conversation just continues to create more use cases for the lithium technology, where you have to soak up every possible ounce of capacity and energy to run that from day in and day out. It might not be, to those anglers, it might not be on tournament day when you're running 6, 7, 8 hours, but those days ahead of it, the practice days where you're running 10, 12, 14 hours, you don't want to waste any time at all not having that view of what's down below. And it's just been amazing to really just learn pure use cases, or it's great to learn someone's having a problem somewhere, jump on a phone call with them. You assume it's, one of the 2 or 3 or 4 things you're troubleshooting, and then you realize just, holy cow, you're using that much power. And let's find ways, just as you said, let's find ways to get to 36 volt, or we have a 36 volt, 40 amp hour battery. You're going to want to put 2 of those in parallel. You don't want to run on 40 amps all day. You won't make it. But let's find the space there, or let's find a dedicated spot for a battery that just is attached to your electronics. It's just a continuous evolution of what is capable, but ultimately a really cool learning experience of everyone loves these gadgets and loves the graphs and loves the live and whatnot in 360, but none of it matters if that battery is junk, or that battery is undersized, or they invested $700 or $800 in something that was 100 amp hours when they really needed 125 amp hours. It's just opened the door and opened the floodgates to every boat's unique, every fisherman's unique, and how do we help make sure they're buying the right products for them, so that they're happy on the water.
Talk a little bit about how footprint has become. This is what I don't understand. I always thought that you needed space, and I suppose this is just your typical lead acid battery. They needed to have a certain amount of space to create the right amount of power or what have you. But it seems lithiums are getting smaller and smaller. Talk a little bit about what's inside those batteries, and then I also realize there's some type of battery monitoring system, or is it a BMS?
Battery management system.
Yeah. Talk a little bit about what's underneath the hood there.
So I'll give a comparison. So when you go look at if anyone's listening to this has our Blue Top X2 AGM batteries, that's exactly what you're talking about. That Group 31, we have so many lead plates within that product. It literally has to be put together by robotics. Human hands and human power can't press those plates tight enough. So the battery is super heavy, is using every ounce of space in there, to essentially create energy. Now you take that same, call it a Group 31, the most popular battery generally, and you go, all right, how much lithium power can we put in there? And 3 years ago it was 100 amp hours. Now it's 125 and a little more. And you're actually able to get that. If you really only needed 100 amp hours, now you're going down to a Group 24 or Group 27 size to create a little space. So really it's about, what's in that battery. It's going to be, individual, lithium cells, either prismatic or cylindrical, depending upon the build. But they're all wired together, and you're right. Within there is the power pack, although the voltage and the capacity by those cells, but those cells can't operate on their own. Think about what you're doing constantly. You can charge these things with a 50 amp charger if you really got one, and not cause damage, because in between those battery cells and that charging source and or discharge source is essentially, for lack of a better way of saying, a small little computer. Mm-hmm. And that little computer is monitoring, is there too much current coming in? Is there too much current being distributed? If every now and then on a trolling motor, someone on a 10, cranking it up on a 10 and current is trying to draw a ton of power, and that battery might say, that's too much for me. I'm going to shut myself down, temporarily, so I don't have bad stuff that's happened in the lithium world before. But it's also doing way more than that. It's literally monitoring every single cell that's built in that pack to make sure they're all charged the same, they're all discharging the same. None of them are tripping for various safety measures they put in and out. It's really what allows us to have these batteries and these types of applications. And it's allowing us to even go and start pursuing things like 24 volts in a 36 volt or 48 volt in a golf cart application in one battery, or we don't have it yet. We're looking at it, and we'll bring it to market. Taking a lithium battery and putting it on the 250 horse and starting that motor, in that space. It's incredible, but it is all due to that, getting a little geeky, but that battery management system better be right, better be solid, and we also need to know what to do when it does do certain things. Probably half my phone calls day in and day out are, I've got no voltage. My battery won't react. Well, something happened where it went to sleep, and we just got to learn how to reawaken a product that you didn't have to reawaken, when it was AGM technology.
Mm-hmm. I've done that. I think we've talked about that.
Yep.
I mean, you're going to do it. You just gotta. The more time you spend monkeying with all this stuff, you're going to understand the process.
Yeah.
And Josh, walk us through your boat front to back. I wish we had it here in the studio. I don't know if we could fit it in here, but you have a ton of gear on your boat, and it's all serving a purpose. So, do you really need all that stuff? Right? That's the question I get a lot. And the answer is no. You don't need all of that stuff. They're tools that you use to find and catch fish, and I think that they all serve their place, and you can use it however you want to use it. That's a cool thing about fishing, right? You can do it however you want to do it. But talk a little bit about how you have your boat set up so that you can take advantage of your battery.
Yeah. My boat, I actually have two boats. I have an aluminum boat, and then I have my tournament guiding boat. Mm-hmm. So with guide trips, I'm out of state only. You got to fly in. I got to have power. I can't have you flying into town and not have power with all the electronics. And then I still want to hoist a lot of trophies over my head, which means that I need to keep up with all the electronics. So my big boat's pretty bougie, if you will. It's pretty. Yeah. It's got it all. And I do want to talk about the aluminum boat too, because I fish almost every day, which means I'm at the boat ramp twice a day. And I just see people are having problems when it was their one weekend to fish. So let me just touch on that boat real quick. That boat, I do have two lithium batteries to run my trolling motor, since I can be either 24 or 36 volts. So it's just a little aluminum boat, 18 foot. I can run those. What I love about them is when I do use that boat, I don't want no problems. And when I first started my career, I was buying cheap 24, you know what I mean? Just cheap batteries. And when you add all that up over the time, and then all the issues I'd have would never be good timing. There never is a good timing for that. And then I run the Blue Top AGM to run the engine. And I'm a big fan of that AGM battery. I'm still a huge fan of that AGM battery. My big boat, my bass boat, I am running. So for electronics currently, and they change it out a lot throughout the year. I'm constantly changing things to play with things. Right now, I am running 4 Lowrance Pro 12s. I have a 16 on the way that I want back for my forward sonar again, so that it's going to need more battery. And then I have a Garmin that I also run in perspective mode. So both of those have to have a box that need power as well. 2 power poles. A trolling motor, a Minn Kota trolling motor that's super fast, 4 mile-an-hour trolling motor, best one I've ever had, but it needs power. So to power everything on that boat, I can't afford to have problems. So I have a ton of redundancy all over my boat. Though I do want to say I've never really had a problem with X2. I started because I loved their Blue Top AGMs. They were flawless. They are flawless. I'd heard horror stories at the time when lithium was first coming out. I didn't want to have none of those problems. I stuck with AGM. they, like Shawn said, they were a little, I don't want to say slow. They were just did everything right to make sure that when they came out with that green battery, that lithium battery, that it would carry the reputation that their AGMs do. So on the back of my boat, I do have, for redundancy purposes, and because I need so much power, I run one big 31 AGM, runs my power poles, my big engine, my power poles, and all the boat's accessories that run through it.
The house
live well pumps, yes, all that kind of stuff. And then I have an extra lithium battery that is strictly for my electronics. And I do want to talk to Shawn about trying to put those in parallel just because, just to have it. But at the same time, I run a switch. Sonar Pros is awesome to me. They've always helped me stuff. So if I do overdo power that day on a long day, if I didn't come in here, it would have been from 6 a.m. till 8 o'clock at night.
That's right.
I can just switch over onto my AGM as a backup. And I think one thing we're learning with the electronics, love them or hate them, they're going to be around. They're going to be around for a while and stuff. So they're important to have. Right. Which means I can't afford for a battery to go bad. So I can go that way. On the other side of the boat, for the trolling motor, I mean, let's be honest, trolling motor does most of our work, especially now with forward sonar and stuff. I am running two 36-volt lithiums in parallel. And then I also have another single one in redundancy that's right there. Should I ever need it? Once a month, I make sure it's full. I've never needed. But again, it's there on a switch. I shouldn't need it with 230, but you just never know when you have a system problem. I'm dealing with big water, 5-foot waves all the time.
You're trolling constantly running.
You just never know. I'm not even, you just never know. You can. I've broken about everything a bass boat can break. And so I'm just like, you just never know. So redundancies, super important to me. Again, I can't look at my client and be like, oh, you flew here from Atlanta.
Yeah.
Sorry, we're done today. I got to go charge my battery.
It's simple insurance, and I really think that represents the norm for the tournament and guide community, is that you do need to have all of this equipment on your boat to stay effective. You want people to come back and visit you, and you want them to refer new clients. It's common sense to make sure that you have everything you need, and if you're going to compete in a tournament against anglers that have the equivalent or even better level of technology, that is going to be a factor. So you touched on something, and Shawn, I want you to dig into this. There was a time, it's been a while. I mean, we're probably talking 10 years plus, where there was it's still an existing fear of there being fires, like somehow a lithium would self-combust or whatever. I think that happened to.
Well, it was everything from toothbrushes and airplanes, anything with a lithium battery, and it would start people's little things and stuff starting on fire in their pockets.
So there is an existing, we'll use the word fear there, but I guess let's put those fears to rest, Shawn. I don't think that's a problem anymore.
It's lithium technology, so you never know. But there's big cell phone company had some problems a long time, several years ago with some of their stuff, and it just happens periodically. But the fear of the bass boat and the lithium technology being what it was 10 years ago, it's pretty much been kind of washed away. There is a lot of safety built into these products because of those opportunities. And when we say we went slow, we went slow, but we hit at the right time when we started peak demand, in terms of power. And at the same point, we're able to get all the right safety at the cell level, safety at the pack level, discharge, charge, all those things that just says the battery's watching itself. And when the problems were happening in the past, super early adopters into the industry, hey, we got this great lithium technology, let's put it in a big battery and let's go. That's kind of the start of all that stuff. There's always someone who's first to jump on, and we're learning from it. And I'd say, as we look at it, the battery is really a safe product these days. A battery, whether lead acid battery, or lithium battery, every now and then something odd happens, but that's really not a fear, that we should have as anglers any longer. It's a fear that I hear a lot, and you start to kind of walk through the comment fields of posts that we make and whatnot, and there is someone will have a fear of that still from 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago, or some buddy of a buddy of a buddy that had a problem. But in today's world, it's a lot of power with a lot of safety, and isn't something that should hold someone back. In my world, there's other things that would hold someone back from jumping to lithium. More than anything, though, it's all about, do I need it? How much power do I need? Is that the right technology for what I have in my boat and how I use my batteries day in and day out? not necessarily safety. So I'll put that to rest, if you will. I don't think there's a guy in the Elite Series and the Open Series these days that isn't fishing with lithium. Some of those stories that you've had in the past, aren't surfacing any longer. So it's at the right spot these days.
Well, and I think what's pretty cool, I had an older Ranger for about 10 years. I just sold it this last winter. God rest its soul. I'm going to miss it mostly. And it struggled with weight. I packed everything I could in there. I had 2 talons on it. It was a heavy rig. And when I had that thing put together pre-lithium, it had 4 lead acid batteries in the back of that thing. And if you do the math, that's, you're 400 pounds probably, give or take a little bit. And the boat performance was terrible. I was really struggling to get out of the hole and just really attain top speed. And you added all the electronics I had on there. It was just a heavy boat. Rangers are heavy anyway. So it's a fine ride, but they're tough to get out of the hole when they're weighed down that way. So when I switched to lithiums, that boat's performance completely changed. And I think that there's something to be said of reduce weight where you can reduce weight. And I mean, Josh, I know you can talk to this too. There've been a lot of tournaments. A lot of anglers have fished. They're going to make a long run. They want to maximize their fuel efficiency, and so they're going to take every lead weight that they can, and it's going to be middle of the boat as opposed all the way to the front. And the tools might be in the back, extra props coming out. There's ways to maximize your boat performance, but if you're going to add that weight back there, you got to expect there to be something on the front to compensate. So you mentioned that earlier. Talk a little bit about how you feel the weight in the front affects the ride of the boat comparatively to the back.
Yeah, I mean, for sure, anyone who's ever maybe speared a wave or even just fished when it's downpouring out can feel what it feels like to have a heavy deck in front of them. So, the batteries are getting lighter. That's a good thing for some. I know a lot of buddies of mine, particularly, and like just an older Ranger, any of the boats that were just built that way, and especially a 2-stroke engine too, trying to get that thing up on pad, and it's all the difference in the world. I'd like to say, I like the lightness. We got to, like I said, we keep putting more and more electronics on the nose and a bigger battery trolling motor, and it's starting to really weight it down. And if I create space in the back of my boat, I just end up sliding another battery in there somewhere to you know what I mean? And
another bag of plastic.
Yeah. So I think it helps. My big thing with lithium is just power, and you can, lithium's expensive. I mean, there's no doubt about it. It's coming down in price, which is really nice with everything coming around. It's definitely coming down in price, but I have literally been on every level of being a fisherman, from a full-time job and a guide, bartending, and just trying to keep a boat together that I couldn't afford. My interest rate was insane. And I talk to people just even at the boat level, you gotta look at your investment level when you buy something up front. I get it. You buy a boat, but if you can get the right batteries in there, I think these lithiums have a 10-year warranty. Am I right, Shawn, or did I just screw up?
10 years.
No, 10-year warranty.
Yep.
And I think a 4-year on the AGM.
Yep.
And I mean, that's an investment in your deal. But the nice thing is in 10 years, if you have a problem, take it to Batteries Plus. There's one in every city I go to. I travel all across the United States. Swap that sucker out if you legitimately end up even having an issue. At the same time, even if you don't fish like me, which is 99% of the people in the world, you get your Saturday with your 2 kids. You want to get out on the water.
I think it's more important there.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
You don't want to, I was there. I come from a divorced family, so I got 2 dads, 2 awesome dads, 2 moms, 2 bunches of uncles, bunches of grandparents. I sat at the dock watching boats not run a lot in my life. And you just kind of there's a price to that time to actually get, or I see it being Mille Lacs, a destination lake, and people come up for Memorial, for 4th of July, and they got their week, and next thing you know, they're trying to, during a holiday weekend, they're trying to find batteries, they're trying to find a new prop, whatever it is. All I'm saying is there is a price to that, and if you add it up over 10 years, what you pay in cheaper Walmart, just cheaper batteries, period. If you added that up over the course of a decade,
you may as well have gotten a lithium.
Oh, for the peace of mind alone. It's like, you know what I mean? So that's where I think, battery, you need to look. One, if you're avid angler, like a lot of us are, and you want to stay competitive. Hell, I more took the year off from competitive fishing to, and I'm not. I leave for St. Clair here soon, but I just had to step back for a second and figure out the electronic game. Figures that's something I want. You know what I mean? Is this where I want to go with it? Is that's what fishing is for me? And it is. So I'll be back. I'll be back stronger than ever. And sometimes you just got to take a thing back. But even again, if it's your 1 week that you get to go to Lake Vermilion with your family, and the boats aren't cheap. Like when you add all that up,
you don't want to be dead in the water.
Yeah, don't sacrifice it. Or like I tell people, so you buy a boat that's a couple months out of warranty for $5,000 less than you could get one in warranty. You're going to pay that $5,000 eventually. You just are.
There's a cost that comes with being set up effectively, and there's a commitment that comes to staying on top of the technology, and then you have to make the same commitment to support that technology with the right kind of power. And speaking of commitment, I mean, a 10-year warranty, that's a confidence thing for me. I know that the company behind the brand is going to stand behind their product. And Shawn, talk a little bit about that. So warranty, if people hear that, they're like, I'm thinking Tommy Boy, right? Like, that comes with a warranty. That's just a guaranteed piece of crap. No, that's not the case. Is I think if you offer a warranty like you guys do, and a lot of the lithium brands do, they offer an impressive warranty. To me, that shows confidence in their product. So talk a little bit, Shawn, about what do you not want to do these batteries, or what might be a cause for a battery to go down, and where that warranty comes into play?
To be honest, most of our very, very little warranty issues. Most of the time that we have call it a warranty issue, it's someone walking into one of our stores. That battery is, to them, to their electronics, it's not working. And what we're ultimately doing is not handing them a new battery. We're showing them for the first time probably in their life as a fisherman or an angler, what you have to do to reawaken that battery computer so that computer can say, yes, please charge me. So first off, the warranty in this space is self-care, I guess is the way you could say it. And I think when you think about, one of the things I'm really proud of with the X2 brand and with Batteries Plus overall, and I'm not trying to take a knock on any other brands, but when you have a store, when you have a local owner, Josh has gone up to our local owner, Dustin, a few times. Great guy, has got 2 stores up in the greater Minneapolis area. You're able to walk in with that battery problem, potentially your boat in the driveway, in the parking lot, and say, help me fix this. And if we can't fix it, we're able to get that product replaced quick and easy. The hard part, and we do ship our product as well from X2PowerBattery.com, but the hard part when we're shipping to customers or when they're 80 or 90 miles away from a Batteries Plus, those problems that are solvable, maybe harder to help with over the phone or maybe send it back to us and we might be able to figure out. But as you said before, these things aren't easily shippable from your home. That's just a fact of the technology. We love that we have a brand that has a great warranty, has great product. Started with a blue top AGM that in the elites and whatnot, even if they're not sponsored by us, that might be the most popular battery in all boats. That started there, but is backed by a company that's been around since 1988, and we're going to be around, right? So that 10-year warranty is going to be outstanding, and I see a lot of competitors come into the space and they'll got great product. I just want to make sure that as you're making that investment, it feels a lot more comfortable, whether you're buying batteries or whether you're buying a trolling motor from some of the big known brands that have been there for years or a brand new to market brand. You got that peace of mind that comes with longevity and battery knowledge, and running all the competitors through the ringer and tearing all their batteries apart and whatnot to make sure ours stands out, and finding little nuances here or there to make sure that 10-year life is going to be a 12 or 13 or 14-year life. And if you take care of it, just like if you take care of our blue top AGM, that thing should last you 5, 6, 7 years. It's usually the lack of care, especially in your part, in my part, in Wisconsin. Those winters are pretty bad on batteries. But if you take care of it, these things could last for a long, long time. And those stories of being out on the water with the kids in the morning, you don't have to be that dad that goes to try to start the motor or turn on the electronics and everything's dead.
Well, you definitely want to make most of the time you have set aside, like Josh said. I think having that confidence in your power supply is huge. You can't put a price on that for me. I fish a lot. You fish a lot. We spend a substantial amount of our year on the water, and the last thing you want to have to worry about is your boat cranking or your electronics starting up. So making that investment up front makes total sense to me, and I understand. I totally get it. I was a guy that could hardly afford to, put a $50 tire on my boat trailer for a long time, and had two lopsided. My axle was like this because I had a utility trailer wheel and a lawnmower tire on there. But hey, it got me to the lake and back. But there does come a time where if you're gonna, if you want to be successful, you don't want stuff on your mind. You don't want a fear or a growing concern of, oh man, if I stay out here another hour, I might lose power or whatever the case may be. So you make that investment, you do the calculations, you rig things right, you maintain things, and you're going to be set to go. So let's talk about maintenance. This is one of those, I get this question all the time, and I don't know that I do it correctly. I haven't had a problem, but I will say it's super duper important to make sure that you are using the right kind of charger in the right manner. And Shawn, I talk a little bit about this too. I have a Minn Kota charger on my boat, and I leave it plugged in when I'm not using it. Is that the correct way to do it?
Yeah, the Minn Kota Precision charger?
Yes, sir. Yep.
Yeah, then you're fine. The typical, that's probably my favorite question we'll get asked. Well, we'll be at the classic show and whatnot, and various trade shows across the country. And the number one question I'll get is, all right, I'm going to Lithium. Do I need to change my charging system? And when I'm having that conversation, first question I always have is, well, how old's the charging system? And almost like 7-8 times out of 10 for the weekend angler that I'm talking to, they'll go, I don't know, it came with the boat. Mm-hmm. And the big thing we all have to know is when we're putting thousands of dollars of drafts in the boat, we're putting thousands of dollars of batteries in the boat, we got maybe a 6-figure whole rig, for some folks. Don't go on that $100 charger that was put out there 8 years ago before lithium ever existed and expect it to work. Mm-hmm. You got to upgrade, whether it's a Minn Kota Precision, or we've got an X2Power brand of onboard chargers that we have. Other brands are in the market with this. It's got to be able to charge. It's got to have a lithium mode. You charge lithium different than you charge a flooded battery or charge an AGM battery. You're going to want it to have a ton of power output. Right? We don't want to have the days of a 3 amp, per line onboard charger. That battery can be charged at 10, 15, 20 amps. And if you think about that, like, all right, I'm going to go and do a tournament and I'm going to practice till 7 or 8. I'm going to get up at 4 or 5 in the morning or even earlier. That time from the pulling into the driveway to leaving is pretty short. You want to be able to have a charger that's cranking out 10, 15, 20 amps. So you're charging all these batteries really quick, and you talk about peace of mind. No one wants to be, doing a weekend tournament, whether Josh's level or a weekender in Southeast Wisconsin, and not only worry about where the fish are, but worry about whether or not you're going to be able to last all day on your trolling motor on your drafts. So it's probably a long-winded way of saying, don't just buy batteries and buy the drafts and buy all the bells and whistles on the top of the deck without also going and saying, all that is, again, useless if I don't have something charging my batteries to the best of their ability overnight, and not have to worry about whether or not it's fully charged. So lithium, yes, really strong battery. The really good products are going to stop at the right time when you're charging them. So that Minn Kota, if you're leaving it plugged in overnight, it's not forcing all the battery, power into it beyond what it should take. But we also have to know there's some misnomers of the past. Yeah, so a misnomer of the past in the marine battery world or the motorcycle battery world, ATV world, is winter comes around, I take my batteries out of my boat, I put them on a piece of wood and set them on the concrete floor, and I put a trickle charger on them, and I let them go all winter. That trickle charger doesn't even work in a lithium battery. It's not pushing out enough power for the battery to that battery management system to even recognize something's trying to charge it. Right, so we just got to look at the technology we have and whatnot. The beauty of lithium is that even in the world of maintenance over winter, if you charge that thing all the way up, it doesn't have a high level of what we call self-discharge like a typical flooded battery does. You could charge that thing all the way up, leave it for a couple months, go put a little bit, an hour's worth of charge on it in the middle of winter when you remember to do, or when you're messing around the garage, and come spring, you're going to be perfectly fine. That's why we can put a 10-year warranty on some of these things, because most of the time, the problem is maintenance. It's not necessarily usage.
Is it a wives' tale about putting a lead acid or AGM battery on the concrete that's bad for it, or is that actually true?
It's pretty much there's really not a whole lot of value to it.
I have batteries on wood in my garage right now.
Well, especially with that fully sealed AGM technology, which is, if you're not doing lithium, you're probably doing that. You're not doing the cheap flooded stuff.
Right.
With that type of deal, it's really not all that necessary.
I do got to say, it's been now that he said that, it's been a long time since I had the turkey baster and some water trying to fill my battery and stuff. We have graduated some,
I've done that too.
Oh yeah.
So it's worth noting that the Minn Kota precision charger that I have, it's a 5-bank charger, but I think it's only a 12-volt per line, I believe, because I don't think that charger, those lines will charge a 24 36 volt battery. Is that correct? Do you need a special charger for that?
Yeah. Some will have a I've had ones that have 12/24 volt options. That's somewhat common. That'll do lithium. 36 volt though, you need to get a dedicated 36 volt charging system for those. That's probably the bigger downfall of moving to that technology. Is whatever's sitting on your boat right now just won't charge it. The benefit of it is, in a lithium space, if you've got 3 12-volt batteries and for some reason a surge hits one of the batteries and it goes to sleep, obviously you no longer have 36 volts. If that happens to Josh's battery, one of the two, he's still got 36 volts. He just has 40 amps instead of 80 amps. Mm-hmm. And he's got that backup one in there because he's Josh and fishes like Josh does. And he just has that redundancy to be able to flip over. But the charging of the 24 volt or 36 volt option is just one extra little thing you have to be careful of.
So is that something on your boat, Josh? Do you have like a single plug you plug in to charge your boat, or do you have a couple?
Yeah, no, it's all one plug, but a lot of that was through Sonar Pros helping me, kind of helping me with different chargers and stuff to make it easier for me just to keep one big cord. And that's, I think we should talk about too, just with chargers and everything, is making sure you're carrying a good electrical cord. That's a big deal.
I've seen that happen. That mistake happens often. If you want to talk about a fire hazard, is trying to run all that juice through a cheap little 12 or 14 gauge extension cord.
And two, it seems like, and batteries are not glorious, right? Batteries are like buying hooks. Nobody gets excited when they have to buy batteries. It's not something you really show off. It sits in the back. It's like fishing line.
Yeah.
But the things, those 3 things I just said, hooks, fishing line, batteries, might be your 3 most important things.
You ain't fishing without them.
I'm telling you. And with the electronics, whether you've spent, which I hate to say, only $2,000 on your electronics, or you've spent $20,000 on your electronics, the power that you get from these batteries is making your system better. It's giving you more juice. I'm seeing more stuff. So I'm breathing more life into the unit and really pulling all the capabilities. I mean, we're technically pushing their capabilities constantly and making these electronic companies, they can bring it, but we're making them keep up with us because we can't have enough of it.
We've gotten to the point with electronics, I think, where we were at with computers, 10, 15 years ago, like you would get the new computer and it was already outdated. And cell phones, the same thing, but now I would say fishing electronics are on that exact same level because we continue to hear, wait, you see what we're coming out with next. And we're excited about that, but it's like,
and let this hit home. Everyone says, I just bought this boat, I'm going to have it for 10 years. Okay. We all say that. I get that.
That's what I tell my wife.
I get that. Will you have your electronics in 10 years? Probably not.
Probably not.
But you'll have your batteries that power them.
That's right. Hopefully.
Well, you better if you get the warranty.
If you got them.
Yeah, that's right. If you take care of them, you got them. You know what I mean? So
it's when you factor in all of this stuff, let's leave the hull, the motor, and the trailer out of the discussion. Everything else, it's a sizable investment.
Dude.
And Josh, you and I could justify to the moon and back spending $100,000 on a boat, motor, trailer, electronics package to go fishing every weekend. It's what we wake up looking forward to.
That's about it.
And I'm not sad about that. I will spend that money. That's not everybody's situation. And we talked about this for a little bit already, that if you're setting aside just a couple, 3-4 weeks at the most, maybe it's 2 weeks a year to go fishing, the last thing you want to have happen is that trip implode because bad battery or your electronics is fritzed or
bad gas.
Something with your motor.
A lot of things. Yep.
A lot of things. So if I feel like you have a responsibility. Here's what I'm coming to. if you're going to own a boat, I don't care if it's a 16-foot Lund that's just 10 boat inside out with a 20 horsepower motor, or up to a whatever you're driving, top of the line bass boat, walleye boat, etc. You have a responsibility, if you're the boat driver, to yourself, to that boat, and then above all that, if it's your kids, your family, or the friends that are going with you, to make sure your stuff is running and running effectively. So there's a maintenance factor that I think comes along with owning a boat.
And really think about what a boat abuse it goes through.
Oh.
Cars don't see the abuse a boat does.
The wind we've had lately, they've been getting a lot of
that. They just get rained in. Moisture and electronics is just a big, weird problem to be had alone. And we're out there. So yeah, you definitely got to take care of what you got, and just get the most out of your investment. Get the most out if you're spending the money to be out there. Just nobody wants to go to Walmart and go buy a damn battery because they're halfway through their day that they had.
Well, and that especially if you're restricted to a week, right? I mean, that's what, if you've got a week's vacation, you're going to take. You don't want. It's
never going to happen at a good time.
No,
it never does.
Never. So one of the things I've wondered here, Shawn, it sounds like we're getting to a point in electronics and battery management and just maintenance that we almost need a custom charger. Like, your needs are different than my needs, and what I have works right now. But if I were to put two 36-volt batteries in that boat, I don't want to have to plug it in 3 different times.
All 3 different. Yep.
So is that something?
That's stuff that right now it's something we've been looking at, because you do want to have, you talk multiple versions of custom. You're gonna have a 36-volt trolling motor on the 2 of your boats. Someone might be running a 24 off the front, 2 12s, off, 112 on the big motor, 112 on some graphs. You almost are getting these variable voltage cookie cutter, not cookie cutter, I guess, specialty systems for an angler. That's why Sonar Pros is just brought up by Josh. We work with Trent down there and quite a few anglers. Like, what he does and what folks like him do for folks is help make that very simple. But now, again, not everyone, you mentioned a guy with a 14-foot London and a 20 off the back. He's not going to go and have Trent rig his boat for him and make it easy for him. So we got to find a way to bring simplicity to it, and whether that is a couple different charging systems that come together for one outlet out the back of the boat to make overnight charging easy, or some variety of that. That's going to be the next evolution for sure. And that's always the question we're getting is, how do I charge this thing? I've got this system in my boat now. It doesn't work. What else do I need to put in there? Or geez, I plugged everything else in, but I forgot the 36-volt charger because it's another cord. We're going to have to, as an industry, come up with some real good solutions that just make it very simple for people.
So I don't understand this part of charging either when it comes to lithium. So I don't know that you can. Maybe you can. I feel like there might be one out there. Can you charge a lithium from the alternator on a motor? How does that work right now?
Yeah, so like I'll give it. We have many anglers that are running the powerful charge system, for instance. Mm-hmm. So as long as the system is set up to be able to do that, and you've got the right lithium charging system within that line, you're good to go. Now, if it's an older system that that is just meant for lead acid batteries and is pushing the power through and doesn't have that called self-regulation of the technology it's charging, you may start to fall into areas where it's been charging, but all of a sudden it's not smart enough to stop the charge and the battery goes to sleep to protect itself. So there's certain areas where people will probably get away with some of those things. Because really the lithium technology is truly meant to be a drop-in replacement at its finest, but it is maximized in terms of capabilities when you use the lithium specific charging technology. So the answer is it might work, but there might also be a day where all of a sudden that battery is sitting in sleep mode and you're wondering what the heck's going on.
Right.
It's your first day of your week-long vacation, and you're in the North Woods of Wisconsin with nowhere in sight to go get something fixed.
You don't want it to happen then. So you mentioned a couple times that lithium's charged differently than, say, AGM or a classic lead acid battery. Is there I have a little run and gun charger in my boat that pulls from the main battery, the house battery AGM when it's at a certain level, and that because I don't have the room. I've got 5 batteries back there, so I have to just roll with how it's going. But how do those batteries consume power? That's a question I get a lot too. I hear they're different. What's so different about power? Isn't power? Well, can you explain a little bit about how they take a charge differently? Like what is it that's different about them?
So I'd say that the most simplistic thing to think of is you've got a pretty, like I was saying, it's kind of a dumb basic technology in a lead acid battery. It's lead plates, positive and negative electrolyte flowing through it. Fully sealed technology or flooded technology. There's nothing in between those posts and the charger, the posts, and the power source inside. So those chargers are just pushing current. The charger itself was relied upon to be smart and say, I'm looking at that AGM battery and I can see that because it's an AGM battery, it's reached its full capacity. I'm going to stop charging. Or I see that it's lead and I'm going to provide a slight trickle charge along the way just to keep that gas tank topped off, if you will. When that charger is looking at lithium, you're not just looking at a bunch of cells inside there that you have to charge. You're looking at a BMS system. You're charging the posts that went into the BMS system that's going to distribute that power to each cell. It's just a difference in. It's almost like, think of it as like a computer system talking to a computer system to charge the cells. So when you get to that level, if you want to make sure all your product is equally charged, if you want to make sure every cell within there is equally charged, it's that power of that, your instance of Minn Precision Charger, that is precisely distributing the power to that technology, not overcharging it, putting it to sleep, and understanding that, okay, I'm looking at lithium and I can't trickle charge it down the road because, it doesn't need that. So it's just become technology driven rather than just a heavy lead battery that, I know it's going to be consistent. It's not going to deliver, a full tank of gas every single time because it's lead.
Well,
so I'd say, for the average consumer, it's kind of like a when in doubt.
Mm-hmm.
When in doubt, for your charging system, don't go buy and invest in lithium batteries. Don't go buy and invest in the stuff that's going to power. If you're not going to go invest in, not the $100 charger off the shelf at the local big box store, it's more the $4, $5, $6, $7, $100 charger that's designed for all these different variable technologies.
I want to be clear about one thing too, because just because we're discussing today lithium power and cutting edge technology on newish boats, there is certainly a place for lithium power in smaller boats and everything down to a kayak. We just published our most recent edition of Kayak Fishing Fun. And the fine folks, Shawn included at X2, powered our In-Fisherman kayaks with an X2 battery. So yeah, we're talking top end electronics. We're talking big boats and big batteries. That's important to a discussion, but it doesn't just apply to that. It applies across the board. And if you want reliable power, that's just a simple 12-volt battery. You're going to fish for maybe 4 hours per day on your vacation. You don't need a 100 amp hour battery. You can find some smaller versions of that. And so, Shawn, walk us through, I guess, some of the battery options for boats
Sure.
and kayaks.
Well, I'll start out with your example. So, Mike, I've got a Crescent Trolley fishing kayak. I've got a Helix 12 on that. And yeah, I'm not putting a 100 amp hour battery. I've got a 12 volt, 20 amp hour battery. That Helix 12 draws about 3.2 amps. And the way I fish, I've got 2 kids in sports and all that stuff on the weekends. I'm lucky to get out there for 4 or 5 hours, with uninterrupted time, and I'm perfectly fine. It's running some lights that I got hooked up, when I'm launching at night, is perfect for me. So we'll go all the way from a 9 amp smaller battery that many of us have seen in ice fishing equipment in the sealed lead acid world, up to our Group 31 125 amp hour 12 volt. Have now added 24 volt Group 31, a 36 volt Group 31, and kind of all those sizes in between. I think what you said is really important. We all have multiple options within it. If you are like me and I'm not able to get out, for tons and tons of hours every single day, I love it. I want to have full power. But in my boat, I'm running our Blue Top AGMs, because I've got my trolling motor because of the way I use it. I'm not going to use all that capacity. So even for, anyone in this battery world, one thing we're always trying to deliver is let's have a good conversation. Sometimes we may all come to the conclusion together that, no, you don't need the lithium, but you really want these Blue Top AGMs running your power. But conversely, if it's in a kayak or in a small boat and you just want 2 graphs off the front of your boat, you might only need the 35 amp hour or the 50 amp hour. Space is at a premium. Let's only get the power you truly need, not overuse it. And let's make sure you're happy with the product. And if it's a bigger battery that you're trying to find space with, power's everything, but you're going, wow, I wish I didn't buy this clunky thing for my kayak. I wish I would have bought something better. It's all about having that conversation with someone, whether it be someone, here from the X2 team, helping you out, or from one of our stores, or from the world of internet and In-Fisherman and whatnot, doing all your research. Finding the right power for you is what it's all about.
And you guys have something for everybody. I mean, you literally can. I think you said you had a 9 amp hour battery, and stair step us through that. You have I've always called that like the duck decoy battery. That's the
same battery,
same size, same footprint, but it goes up from there. Walk me through your different sizes quick.
We'll go 9 amp hour, a 12 to an 18 amp hour, 35, 50, then 7500, 125. So we're almost, you think of it as 20 to 25 amp hour increments. And it's a weird way of buying a battery these days, because it wasn't, walk into a big box store and say, I got a Group 27. Now we actually when we increased the capacity of our Group 27 to 100 amp hours and ramped up the 125 in the 31, we actually started selling more 27s than 31s for the first time, because they weren't looking for the group size. They were saying, all I need is 100 amp hours. Let me save $100 on the battery and save some space. So it's a weird world where it's no longer like, that's what I have, that's what needs to fit. What is the power you need? We actually pulled it down, we're rebuilding it, but we're building a calculator on our website right now where you'll be able to pick every single one of your graphs that you're running. You'll see the power draw. It'll spit out all the batteries and how long they'll last in a given life. And those are the tools you really need to make sure you're properly powered.
I feel like that it can get convoluted. You can see all these different battery sizes and think, I don't know why I need that. I don't know that I need the 125, but I might need this. I have a friend that I helped him re-rig his boat. He only has room for 2 batteries underneath his rod locker. So it's your tin boat style layout. And there's room for 1 battery in the back. So he has 3 batteries, trolling motor and house batteries. And he bought live scope. He bought, I think, a 12-inch graph to go with it. And he's like, I just don't know where I'm going to put the batteries. And so we started looking around, and underneath his steering wheel, there's actually a shelf in there that he could fit 3. I think he did something like 20 amp hour batteries, and because there's no place to put a bigger one, right? So he had limited space. You take these smaller batteries, rig them in a series or rig them in parallel. For electronics, you need to rig them in parallel. But that's an option. So if you have these smaller footprints, you can kind of tuck them away and get them out of the way sometimes. And it's going to take a little innovation. You're going to have to run some wires and be creative, but you can get it done. And if you're not going to upgrade your boat, and you're not going to upgrade maybe your battery charger, and you don't want a great big battery to add to it, there are ways to get to where you need to be. And I think that's the big thing, Josh. You want to make sure you're adequately powered, because you don't want to be dead in the water out there. And that's the key. So speaking of dead in the water, what do you do if one of your battery dies when you're on the water? You have switches, right? Talk about
I've never actually had that happen.
I know
it's been a long time. It's been a long time.
Yeah.
I do run the power pole charge. That definitely keeps me everything charging out there. The redundancy thing is just kind of new with the space as everything comes, and how important the electronics are.
Redundancy is another term for a backup for a backup.
Yeah, just a backup, or it's a backup. Yeah, it's there to serve as a backup, and I do have them on switches. Most, literally everything. I can figure out a way to start whatever. Ever go out.
You make me chuckle, because I've been dead in the water a bunch too, so I have redundancies built into my system as well. So I've gotten ahead of my own stupid self, making my own stupid mistakes that I seem to continue to do.
Well, it's not even mistakes. I mean, I fish at this level, and I'm lucky enough to have Shawn's number on speed dial, and because I don't understand it. I understand how fish move and how they eat and stuff like that. I don't understand power for my electronics. I understand what I'm looking at with electronics, but if you ask me anything technical at all about my boat, and I'm going to get the heebie-jeebies quick and say I got people on speed dial, I call, because I don't know. I don't know that kind of stuff. So I think it's really kind of a familiar space for people to have a ton of questions and not really having, a lot of things come with batteries that you just regularly buy at the store. So you don't really think much about it. But even my last trip to Home Depot, all the DeWalt tools I think now are lithium, and
they don't give those a battery.
They're kind of phasing those away. So as far as like, I don't a lot like I trust that I guess the only thing I don't truly have redundancy or backup is my Blue Top AGM.
Never had a problem.
I've never had a problem with an X2 battery. And they don't come out with stuff until it's ready.
Well,
and I'm good. And then the other thing is we always talk about problems, but efficiency is even better. Like on my aluminum boat, being able to have 2 lithium batteries now allowed me to put a big 115-pound thrust trolling motor on the front, which moves a little 18 boat around. Like my engine, if that Yamaha was to ever break, I can get off Lake Superior with that thing, the way it seems. And then you said to yourself, we were just talking about it before, I don't know if the kayak game would be where it was today, was it for lithium batteries.
100%.
I don't think they could do that.
So a little sideline story that we're actually up on the shores of the Mississippi River here, the In-Fisherman facility. And I wanted to catch a muskie from my kayak on a sucker in late November. I mean, really, it was a terrible idea.
Sounds cool.
It was a cool adventure, but my first trip out, I had the Old Town Sportsman Autopilot, and that ran on a 12-volt battery. So the first trip I went out, I had one of those 100-pound classic lead acid batteries in the kayak, but I was sucker fishing, so I also had a cooler full of water and suckers in it. And I got in that kayak, and I'm not a little man, all right? So you got a lot of big things in that boat, and it was a little rocky. I was like, oh man, I don't know that this is a good idea. I did that for one day, and then I'm like, why am I doing this? I got this lithium battery up here. So I swapped them out, and I didn't think it would have the power to go all day. I just didn't comprehend in my mind how to make it work. Well, it was a massive change in functionality in my kayak. Long story short, I ended up catching one, and then the river froze up 3 days later. And I mean, if I had tipped the kayak, I'd have been dead. No way around it. But the point I'm getting at here is, kind of what we were talking about a minute ago is, I think there's a lot of value in spending time inside your boat and understanding where there's wires. And if you're not going to rig your boat yourself, at least have an understanding where things are at and how you can bypass this to accomplish that if something does happen. And for a long time, I had a phantom leak that I wasn't sure where it was coming from. And I'd come out to my boat. This lasted 2 years. And I have dead batteries. I'm like, well, and if I stayed on it soon enough, they would charge back up, and it was no big deal. But it ended up costing me 2 batteries because I wasn't aware of what was going on. Well, one of the most important things you can do as a boat owner, if you're not going to rig it yourself, have someone rig it and put in a master power switch.
Oh, always, yeah.
And I know you've got a couple main power switches in the back of your boat. I have 2.
I think there's 4 switches now that I have to hit in sequence every time I go fishing.
That's right. I've got 2 plus a breaker that I undo every time. But make sure that you can disconnect that power, because there's not a graph, there's not a sonar system. Even the talons and power poles and Raptors, they all draw power when they're not in use. It's tiny, tiny bits. But over an extended period of time, and you factor in cold weather, you could be in trouble. So if you're having problems inside your boat, if you're not able to keep your battery charged, you feel like you put it on the charger and you're running out of power quick, there might be some other stuff going on.
Absolutely.
And one of the most important ways to eliminate the stuff that you don't understand or can't control is through a master power switch.
The tough spot for Shawn and the people that work at Batteries Plus is they're dependent on everybody else's stuff to work right to make sure theirs looks like it.
That's right.
It's not, most of the time it's not going to be the battery problem. It's something else that in that system is hurting that battery. Or just hurt, does drawing power, like what you said.
So I did have a battery go to sleep last year, Shawn. You guys kind of helped me through that, but kind of explain what that is, and then the process of waking it back up and getting it to work again. Yeah,
so it ties right back to that charging system question you asked before. All it is the battery is saying, all right, my voltage is dropping to a point where if I let myself keep dropping voltage, I'm going to cause damage to the product. And when you have a 10-year warranty, it's those damage points and those bad events, if you will, that are what caused that to not last 10 years. So it's shutting itself down for the good of you who's invested in the battery, for the angler. It's just a pain. And what you have to ultimately do is push power through in the right way to that battery, through that charger, that reawakens it. So like I'll explain our X2Power chargers and Curtis and whatnot have similar things. There's some call it a force mode, some call it an awaken mode, but that charger is smart. So you're turning off the smartness of the charger, because the charger is sensing that there's nothing on the other side that I'm trying to charge, get to sleep. And it's just pushing that power into the battery. Then the BMS sees it and says, all right, I'm getting enough juice to reawaken myself and accept the charge. So there's there'll be a time period called 3 to 5 minutes where you're pushing that power, that charger to the asleep battery is pushing power in. The battery reboots itself is a good way of saying it. And then the charger automatically flips to a normal charging system. That's something that is not obviously available in a 10, 12, 13-year-old charger that you have in your belt, right? If you're going to have the moments where that could happen, you want to already be hooked up to a system where you can push a button on that charger, there'll be a way in the manual. It'll say hold on the mode button for 5 seconds or 7 seconds, and it'll be able to flip into that mode. You want to have that already set up so that you can charge that right away, right? If you just got off the water and you think something's asleep, the beauty of our products now, you can look at your app, you can look at all the batteries in your boat, and you can see if there is one that is indeed asleep. Yes. And then you'll know exactly where to go to find that solution. You'll also conversely know if you're having battery power problems and all 5 batteries are fully charged and ready to go, that it isn't a battery charger. It may be a wiring charge problem, or a crimped cable somewhere that's not distributing power to a graph. All that at your fingertips is what's really critical to making sure you can jump back on the water as soon as possible.
That app is super handy. I mean, there have been numbers of times I'll have 3 and 4 ice units in the back of the truck, and I can't remember which one we used,
Yep.
because they all look the same, and you just open the app up and be like, oh yeah, it's got this one here, and I write the number on the side of these batteries so that I don't have to get in there with a magnifying glass to find it. But that way, it's saving you time. You can kind of monitor your usage. If you're spending a long day on the water, you want to check things out like, all right, where are we at? If I'm gonna you don't want to make a decision based on what power you have, but if you have been fishing for 15 hours, you may want to double check something before you run across the lake away from the ramp. So you are able to monitor your battery power supply. You're able to monitor the health. And that app has been super handy. And I think a lot of battery companies nowadays have an accompanying app that goes with it. So it is a good idea, a good way to check on things. And it's just going to help you make better decisions in the long run. And really, what it comes down to is we want to spend uninterrupted time on the water. We don't want to, if we're taking vacation, we got 5 days to fish our brains out, and that's all we got. The last thing you want are battery problems. So invest in good power. If you're going to invest in the electronics, you're going to invest in a trolling motor, you need to invest in the right kind of charger. You need to invest in the right kind of batteries. And it's not cheap on state-of-the-art boats, but it sure is a lot of fun. And I'm not sorry that I like my boat, and I embrace my boat payment. So that comes with the game, but don't think you can't repower your rig. If you don't plan on buying a new boat, you can repower with some great lithium products at X2 for sure.
Definitely.
Well, guys, this has been a lot of fun. I think there's probably a ton of questions that people have, and we should probably write a list down and get to it. But you can learn a lot by going to the X2 website, and it's X2PowerBattery.com. Is that right, Shawn?
Yep. You'll have both our all the information you'd have on the blue top AGMs, the lithium. You'll see some other cool things that we've just launched. We've got really great portable power stations that are taking that lithium to the camper, to the campsite with you, to lithium jump packs and lithium air compressors. Anywhere where we can take this power and get it in a tight spot, for our customers, we're going to go for it.
You got a lawnmower yet? I need my yard mowed. I'm tired of it. I need some goats. This is what it comes down to.
One thing, just a little advice I was thinking of. Electronics so important right now for bass fishermen.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm not mistaken, I think the last 2 classic champs run X2. and it was all
You're right.
a bunch of
You are
electronics.
correct. Yeah.
You're 100% right about that. And that's a whole nother discussion that we should have, but really, it doesn't matter how you fish. If you're going to use electronics,
Right.
you need good, clean power. X2 is a great option. Josh, before we part ways, talk a little bit about what you do. I know that you have done a lot of electronic seminars. You
Sure.
guide on the Fame Mille Lacs, which is a wonderful fishery. Talk about what you're into.
Yeah, I mean, I've always liked the educational part of fishing. You know, I've been at it here. I fished about every level of fishing that they have to offer tournament wise. Got a ton of experience there. I'll always fish high level tournaments. What's out there. I'll probably even go back fish all the Bassmaster Opens again next year, just because now I'm starting to get really good with the electronics.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of want to see where that can go. But you know, I'm a guide. I started as a guide. I was a guide before I ever fished a bass tournament. I have a great clientele of people that keep coming back. I love making people's bucket list trip at Lake Mille Lacs. I specialize in doing that 20+ pound days. That's kind of my deal. And then, you know, any kind of video stuff I can do to continue to promote my sponsors, promote myself, Josh Douglas Fishing, of course, and just try to put good content that people want to keep following.
You're a natural teacher. You've always been into like sharing your experience and sharing what goes on to make people more successful.
A lot of fishermen are quiet, and I get that, and a lot of ones that are better than me. But like, I don't know. It's not a cockiness. It's my job to be better than you when the puck drops every single day. And I don't care if you're fishing an elite tournament, the Toyotas, or the West Metro Bassmaster Snatchers. When the puck drops, it's a tournament, man, and your reputation's on the line, and you're trying to get the most out of it. It's all the same. But I love giving that knowledge forward, but I'm also a student all the time. I mean, I'm constantly, you know, I had Easton Fothergill on the phone the other day, and I'm just picking these 20-year-olds' brains, you know, to keep up with it. Because if you're not learning, then you're definitely on the way out of that.
You have to embrace it. You have to embrace the change in the fishing. You have to embrace the change in the technology, and it's a commitment.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily easy to just sit down and say, all right, I got to go through and update this and learn how to do that. But I think you'd agree with this. I've talked to a lot of pro anglers, a lot of just dedicated anglers out there that will tell you that nothing tops time on the water.
No, for sure.
And all of this, none of this matters if you're not going to spend the time on the water to learn the technology, to apply it, to understand how the power provides you with the information that you're analyzing minute to minute. You can't beat time on the water.
I was on the water from this morning till I came here, and as soon as you tell me I can go, I'm going right back to it. So.
And I'm going to be doing the same thing. Our boats are parked side by side out there. But guys, this has been a lot of fun. Thanks for making a little bit of time for us. We want this to be an educational, informative conversation. And if you're looking at making the jump into lithium batteries, you got a lot of great options out there. We, of course, want to recommend X2Power. They work with In-Fisherman. They work with Josh Douglas and a handful of other anglers. Jeff Gussie Gustafson, who's a close friend of In-Fisherman too. So, you know, they're in the hands of people that you can trust. And we're not here to sell you a product. We just want you to be successful.
Yeah,
and
that's right.
if you have questions, the other great thing about the X2Power battery website, there's a lot of great frequently asked questions that have answers, and you can mitigate a lot of issues there just by
and
typing it in.
I've had a lot of people come up to the lake, you know, even though I'm booked with guide trips, they know who I am. They reach out, they're having issues. I take them over to Batteries Plus or send them over there. And they've always taught me, like I said, I set up my electronics. I know what I'm looking at. I know how to fish, but I don't understand amp. I don't understand a lot of that kind of stuff. And I learn a bunch, just like I learned from Shawn today, from just stopping in and visiting one of the stores.
Well, it's super important, Shawn. Thanks for being here. Shawn is the VP of Category Management. I got it.
Big boss man.
Boss man at Batteries Plus, represents X2Power, both the AGM and the Lithium lines. Pretty awesome. Thank you, Shawn. We appreciated your time today.
Thank you very much.
And then Josh Douglas, of course. If you want to learn more about Josh, and I recommend you do, he's a good friend of mine. We've been kind of growing in this business together for a lot of years. I think that's a deeper story for another time. But it's romantic. We've shared some ups and downs together.
Oh, yeah.
Check out Josh Douglas at joshdouglasfishing.com. You can learn a little bit more about Mille Lacs, learn a little bit more about fishing electronics and how to find fish, and you'll get it done. Hey, this is Thomas Allen. You've been listening to In-Fisherman Storyline. We'll see you here next time. Keep your stick on the ice, I guess, or whatever you want.
You have to work on that.
Thanks for being here.